moving on, we have Uroš Lipovšek. He's going to tell us about Python documentation generation. He's going to present some tools to make it easier and show a real example with GitLab. Uroš.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so for me, either using documentation as user or writing it has been always like silver lining because I tried multiple approaches. And for me, doing it like, writing code in VS Code and then shipping documentation to something like Confluence was always extremely exhausting and error prone. So for me, I really liked this Sphinx approach, which basically auto-generates documentation out of doc strings, because you just write a doc string next to your Python code, which is much, much easier to maintain. So to start it off, we have different doc string types. Two of the most popular are NumPy and Google. And it's basically first you have some sort of description, then you have arguments, returns, and raises, which is basically about, what kind of exceptions can I expect as user and what do they mean? So we have this high-level overview of what we will be talking today. On the left, we have docstring, then we have some local environment where we will talk about precommit, then CI, CD, which will build our documentation and ship it to AWS S3 as one of hosting options. So as I mentioned, we can start off with precommit. Here I used PyDoc style, which will just warn you or actually deny committing the code if doc strings are incorrectly formatted. And that's useful because basically you don't want to find out your doc strings are just randomly formatted, when you have to push to S3. But this will actually warn you right before you want to commit your code to Git repository. So this is kind of the beginning point. And then the main thing is Sphinx. So Sphinx is Python project for developing documentation out of doc strings. And it's basically about parsing Python file and then generating human-friendly HTML. So you can also add all kinds of fun themes to that. So it's not like only black or white. So you can just start off with Sphinx quick start. And then basically this will generate the basic structure. The one thing is about makefile. So you have this user-friendly makefile where you can just type make HTML into the build HTML. And then Sphinx is configured through conv.py. And this is basically auto-generated through Sphinx CLI. And here you can define different extensions, author, version release, all the fun stuff like different themes, because probably you don't want to have it just black and white. And yeah, so basically you have a lot of interesting extensions. You can start with Autodoc. You will also probably need Napoleon if you want to use something like Google Doc strings. And another like fun extension that I want to mention is this doc test, because with the documentation, we don't want to just describe our code. So we don't want to just describe what our function will return. But a lot of time for user, it's also very nice if we can give some sort of example. And then you run into the issue that examples can become obsolete. So doc test is basically about testing examples in your doc strings. So essentially, doc test will change if this will output this. And I think this is very useful thing to have, especially if you have some library that you have to maintain for years and years. So yeah, another interesting extension is TypeHint, which leverages type hinting that was recently added to Python, which is also a very nice thing to have, because I think it adds a lot a lot to variable naming. You don't have to have variable named number underscore int or something like that. So yeah, once we have this ready, this Sphinx setup, you can just go make HTML and everything is built. And then the last part is actually building in CI/CD and deploying the S3. And here you can use Gitlab CI, and it's basically pretty straightforward to do that. You can also use GitHub, and they actually have GitHub action just for this already made, so that you can just add some parameters and that's it. And for S3 setup, so generally what you are looking for is basically hosting static website, and you have to just enable it and set basically index document, and you're ready to go. So hosting itself is free. What is not free is actually adding some domains. So Route 53 functionality is not free, and that's the only costly part basically. And then so you can host this on S3, but you can also use GitLab Pages, which is kind of GitLab native way of doing that, so that you can just spin up documentation on demand. Or GitLab Pages are also used for preview application and stuff like that. And because we're just uploading simple HTML document, GitLab Pages can also be like very useful for this, so that you don't have to exit this GitLab environment, and you can have everything there basically. Yeah, that's all from my side.